Hey guys, welcome to the Kunal Call. I'm Kunal Bhatia and I'm joined again by the three people that have always been here since the start of this channel, Mikaeel, Farhan, and Mustafa. Thank you for
Hey
joining me
yo,
again, guys. And now we'll be talking about our favorite wrestler. Why do we like him? Why do we love him? Why is he a part of our childhood for so many years? And he will be part of our life for more and more times to come because the kind of impact that he had on wrestling that you can't underestimate. So I would like to ask you, what is it about the Undertaker? Why do we love him? I'm going to ask everyone because this is a genuine opinion. I want to know. Mikael, you can start, then Farhan, then Mustafa.
yeah, bro. First of all, great to be back, and especially this episode of the Kunal Call is so special to me because the Undertaker is my all-time favorite wrestler. He's my hero in childhood and as a 25-year-old. I mean, he's the GOAT in my opinion. He is definitely the greatest of all time. And what makes him so special, really, and why people love him so much, especially like someone like me who's, idolized him, is I guess because one, he managed, first of all, to, a gimmick that would have been was cool in the 90s, but a lot of these gimmicks would have been outgrown by this point, in like 2020. But somehow Undertaker has found a way to keep his gimmick relevant throughout these years and still have that intimidating presence, to still have that just that aura about him, his entrance, even like just his wrestling style. And I think that's another thing because so many wrestlers we've seen as they age, their craft, they kind of lose their craft slowly and slowly. But with Undertaker, I feel he'd reached his peak in his later years. Like if we go back to those amazing matches with Shawn Michaels and Triple H at 25, 26, 27, and 28 at WrestleMania, it gives you an insight into just how dedicated he is to the sport. And another thing you can see is, even people who are not, they're not, they're just casual watchers basically of WWE. They'll only tune in for WrestleMania. They tune in just for the Undertaker to watch his legendary streak. So that even tells
Yeah.
you just like what a box office hit he is. So for all these reasons, I guess that's why I idolize the Undertaker. And plus, like, I guess maybe as a kid, he even taught me, not directly, but through his wrestling, that you gotta be tough. So that's what I love about him.
Farhan, what do you think about the Undertaker?
Yeah, I think The Undertaker is the personification of a legend. Um, I love Undertaker, since childhood. He's been my favorite wrestler. And I remember whenever he lost a match, I would be upset about it for a week. That's how much I loved Undertaker. I loved his entrance. I love his music. I loved his look. I think Undertaker doesn't get a lot of credit for his look. He has a really intimidating, commanding presence. There's just something about him that just commands your attention. He's larger than life, but also understated in a weird way.
Yeah.
And I like the fact, I think more than Undertaker, I've come to admire the man Mark Calloway, the man behind the character. Him being a locker room leader, him doing him being him wrestling through injuries, him having quality matches with different people, and the fact that it's been 30 years and it's just as fresh to me 20 years ago as it is today. So and what I love about Undertaker is that he was able to adapt his character as the product changed. So you go to the Hogan era, to the Bret Hart era, to the Attitude era, the Ruthless Aggression era, the PG era, and so forth. He was able to adapt not just his character but also his wrestling style. He started incorporating a lot of MMA, a lot of boxing, a lot of wrestling into his matches. So I think for all those reasons, I would say Undertaker is definitely, if you put Undertaker as the greatest of all time, it's hard to dispute. I definitely think that he is the greatest of all time. Not my greatest, but I definitely think that he belongs to an elite category of wrestlers who are the greatest of all time.
Mustafa, what do you want to say of the Undertaker?
Yeah, just like they said, like for me, he is one of the great. I mean, actually, the greatest of all time. And I'm not someone who can pick a favorite in anything easily. Favorite song, favorite movie, favorite book, favorite wrestler. But in wrestling, like Undertaker, the impact he's had on WWE, his character, his unique character, the phenom character, the dead man character, something no one has ever seen before and probably would never see in WWE. You know, you can't have another Undertaker in WWE. You might have another Shawn, another Brett, and all that, but a character like his is just so unique. You know, and aside from that, I mean, his wrestling style, like you guys mentioned right now, you know, how often you've seen a big guy, a 6'7" guy, a huge guy of his size, go to the top rope and do moonsault. I mean, not moonsault, but like suicide has done all that so commonly. You know what I'm saying? I think Keith Lee is pretty much the only other big guy I've seen who's doing moonsaults and stuff. You know, like a
Yeah.
guy of his size still having that energy towards the end of his career, same energy he had in the beginning of his career, in the prime and all that. Like his dedication is amazing, his character is amazing, and last but not least, the impact he's had on WWE is amazing as well. You know, Mark Calloway as a locker room leader, as a guy who was always there doing whenever WWE was in turmoil. For example, you know, he was the mediator between Bret Hart and Vince McMahon when the Montreal Screwjob happened. He's been there putting up, he's been there literally putting up young talent whenever he could. Like he didn't have to put up Bray Wyatt in WrestleMania 31, but he did. He didn't have to come back to put up AJ Styles at WrestleMania 36, but he did. You know, and yeah, of course Roman Reigns, even though we didn't like what he did, but still, I mean, we didn't like that match with Roman Reigns, but still, like this shows how much love and appreciation he has for this company. And another fact that I don't know if people know about this or not, but that Mark Kelly never gave an out of character interview until he announced his retirement in his Last Ride documentary. Then it was
Yeah.
the first time you saw him on the Stone Cold podcast and here and there, just giving interviews out of character. It just shows how dedicated he was to WWE, and the impact he's had is unlike any other.
Man, you guys have all made valid points about the Undertaker. I really have nothing to say and nothing to add on it. So let's get right to it in terms of the top five matches that he had in his career. It's for me, as a wrestling fan, it's very difficult to select the
Very
top five
difficult.
matches of Undertaker. It's very difficult because that guy has matches with everyone, literally like every person everywhere has had a great match with the Undertaker because of his style, because of his persona, because he was so great in terms of what he brought to the table. So let's get right to it. Mustafa, I'd like to start with you with the top five pick, fifth pick with you, then Mikaeel. No, sorry, Mustafa, Farhan, and then Mikaeel. So Mustafa, you can go ahead with your fifth pick.
So my number 5 pick is Undertaker versus Kane at WrestleMania 14. And the reason I say this is because, first of all, Undertaker was 7 years into his WWE career, and no one had seen anything like him. And this, and we had only like the only thing close to the Undertaker we have seen was Kane. The only terrifying character, the scary character we had seen was Kane. He was the ultimate heel to the top face the Undertaker was at that time. So this match was an amazing match, a crazy match, and even though the Undertaker won, it showed like first thing it did that it showed how scary and how terrifying this Kane character is. That it took Undertaker three tombstones to put him away. You know, like first two tombstones he kicked out. Back then, it was it was like almost impossible for people to think that anyone would kick out of the tombstone pile driver. And the fact that
Yeah.
Undertaker had to execute the tombstone 3 times to put Kane away just showed how terrifying this is. And number 2, it literally started the rivalry of the ages. Now, people might say Austin versus Rock is the greatest WWE rivalry, or Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels, and I agree, like it is to an extent. But to me, Kane versus Undertaker is the greatest rivalry in WWE of all time because they have been feuding so many times over the years. They had a feud back then when Kane debuted. They had a feud in 2004 when he returned as a dead man at WrestleMania 20. They had a feud even in 2010 towards the end of both of their careers. And even that
Yeah.
feud was, they had great matches then. So this feud was like the El Clasico of WWE, Barcelona versus Real Madrid of WWE, the Brazil versus Argentina of WWE. In a way, like Kane was the ultimate heel versus Undertaker being the ultimate face. And every time these two had a match, it was crazy. Whether it was the Inferno matches, whether it was the Buried Alive matches, or any kind of match they ever had, it was just out of this world and great. And this match started it all. WrestleMania 14 match between these two started it all.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I just want to add one point that Kane has been like the constant guy with
The
the
constant
Undertaker.
rival,. Exactly, yeah.
They're dependable. So
Throughout
Farhan,
the
what's your
years.
yeah? Sorry, that's a good point. Farhan, what's your
Yeah.
number five pick?
I go number 5 would be Undertaker versus Jeff Hardy in 2002, the ladder match.
That
for
was so
the
close to making my list.
yeah. That would be there. I love the fact that uh, uh, Undertaker, for me, he's always had his best matches with smaller guys. I
Yeah.
think that when it comes to smaller people, Undertaker has always excelled in terms of storytelling, and a lot has to do with his speed. I think because of his speed, he's able to tell a good story with the smaller guys. I like that match because the match it wasn't about Undertaker; it was about Jeff Hardy, and uh, and the Undertaker played an instrumental role in putting Jeff Hardy over. I love the fact that Jeff Hardy came in as the underdog and the Undertaker came in as this dominant bully. And watching Jeff Hardy struggle and try and beat and overpower this nightmare known as the Undertaker was just it was fun to watch. And at one point when Undertaker goes for the last ride and Hardy takes the chair and whacks him with the head, I genuinely thought that's it, the match is over. I think all good matches are matches that you cannot predict. If you can't predict what happened in a match, it's a good match. And I think Undertaker and Jeff Hardy did that really well. Of course, when Jeff Hardy climbs the ladder, JR screams his iconic "Climb the ladder, kid, make yourself famous," and obviously the Undertaker wins. But what makes this match special to me is the ending, where Undertaker, after he last rides Jeff Hardy takes the mic and he's like, you haven't broken me. And then Undertaker comes and he's about to go for the blow, but then he raises his hands up, and I love that ending because
Yeah.
even though Jeff Hardy lost, Undertaker still put him over,
Yeah.
and it was really believable. Like, for example, I mean, like, no offense, but if Shawn Michaels raises the hand of someone else after he beats them, it doesn't really mean much. But if Undertaker does it to raise someone's hand up at the end of the match, that is quite significant. So I think Undertaker and Jeff Hardy no, would be my number five.
Mikael, what's your number five pick?
It was actually a close call. Like for me, I was thinking of either putting Jeff Hardy and versus the Undertaker, or it was going to be Stone Cold versus Undertaker at SummerSlam. But I'm going to have to go with number five. It's going to be Undertaker versus CM Punk at WrestleMania 29. At this point, we all thought Undertaker couldn't do anymore. Like he had given us four WrestleMania classics in a row. How many wrestlers can you name who have done that? And just when we thought like we've seen, enough of the Undertaker, he comes back with an instant classic. People talk about this match to this day. First of all, of course, Living Color performing Cult of Personality live was a treat. Probably CM Punk's best entrance. And in terms of like CM Punk's like role in this match, his mind games and Paul Heyman's mind games with the Undertaker regarding Paul Bearer. CM Punk knew exactly what he was doing. I mean, this CM Punk could be face, he could be heel, he could be a tweener, but he will excel. And as for the Undertaker, he really showed that I'm not done yet. I still have a few wrestling matches left in me. CM Punk threw everything at the Undertaker. Like CM Punk was one of the few wrestlers I've seen not intimidated by the Undertaker initially, but as the match progressed and he realized what he was dealing with, it was very good storytelling that his descent into like desperation and madness, that he realized that what he's dealing with is not an ordinary man. He's dealing with the dead man. So he threw swinging neck breakers at the Undertaker, even that famous elbow drop onto the table. Even Undertaker, for a man of his age, he was so athletic as all heck in this match, and it really showed. And of course, I love that the ending was spot on. Like he's trying to connect the GTS, and then Undertaker counters into a tombstone, then countered again into a GTS, and then it's again countered into the tombstone. And in fact, what I liked is that CM Punk is also one of the few wrestlers who, like, I didn't expect him but he kicked out of the tombstone initially. Like the first tombstone in the match, he kicked out, which how many people can say they've done that in their careers, but CM Punk did. And I think that if there was someone, obviously we all know who broke the streak, unfortunately, what a absolute travesty. But if there was someone who deserved to break the streak, it was this guy, CM Punk, in my opinion. He should have been the one. But 21-0 for the Undertaker, And I guess that's a win for me in a way, but it would have also been cool for CM Punk to win. But yeah, I mean, it was a really good match. So number five for me, definitely.
Those are very good points. Your top five, all top five picks are done. My fifth pick is Undertaker versus Mankind at Hell in a Cell, King of the Ring, 1998, because it was
Of
something that no
course.
one expect. Yeah, obviously it's something that you don't expect it to happen. You don't expect the bump that Mick Foley took. You don't expect the bumps that even Undertaker took. Like he jumped off the freaking cage with a broken foot, and you don't expect that. You don't see that normally with people. You don't
Yeah.
you don't see that. Like a guy like Mankind is willing to sacrifice his life to entertain the crowd, and a guy like Undertaker who has a broken foot, he's coming up and he's like, you know what, I'm going to go and entertain people, and I don't care about it. The match was brutal. The match was physical. It was so bad that at some time you were like, you know what, let's stop this. Just stop the match. Like finish it off. It was that, it's good enough that you want to entertain the audience, but when it gets
Mhm.
to something more than entertaining, has become more violent, then those matches you can't see as a viewer. Even as a guy, like, I enjoy high spots, I enjoy the ladder spot, but I care about the human being more. Even
Yeah.
then, obviously, like when you see the match for the first time. That's my fifth pick of Undertaker versus Mankind, because I don't need to talk about it because everyone knows already what the match was. So I'm going to start with the number four pick. So number four pick will be shocking for you guys, but for me, it's Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels at Hell in a Cell 1997. The bad blood in the house.
Already?
I
Yeah,
know, right?
already for me.
Already.
Fourth pick.
Wow.
Yeah, because for me, this match was shocking. It was obviously the first Hell in a Cell match you can ever see, and whatever the wrestlers are doing now, these guys did it then.
Exactly.
Like
And better.
climbing, and better
Yeah.
obviously, because when it's Shawn and Undertaker, you don't expect anything bad. You expect always everything good. So that's what it was. Shawn Michaels, man, he was like one of the man. He was so good at that time, man. He was better than the run that he had after he came back. Like that's my opinion,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
I think that was his prime, and he was looking so ripped, amazing. He had the swag, the style. He had Triple H, China. It was like the ultimate attitude era, obviously, of the WWE. But at that particular match, if you see Shawn, the kind of jumps he took was very unreal. Like already go through him of the ring, he jumps off and he
Yeah.
almost hits the cell. And I'm like, this guy's so into the match. Like even as a wrestler, you are also concerned for your own safety, because obviously you don't want to get hurt. And then he goes out and everything is so planned. And then he goes on top of the helmet itself. Then obviously he drops down and on the table, and the Undertaker comes down, and the match is about to end. And then who comes? Kane. Like how Mustafa said, it was like, if you see the documentary of how Kane happened, also like the kind of discussions that took place, it was very that could have been the perfect match. That is for me the perfect Hell in a Cell match, because nothing was wrong in that match. Absolutely nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's my number four pick. Farhan, what about your number four pick?
Number four would be Undertaker versus Kurt Angle, No Way Out, 2006. I would go with that one, number four. I love that match. That was I mean, like, Jesus Christ, Kurt Angle. That match became a submission god, like a submission machine. I
Yeah,
mean,
he
I,
was.
I mean, literally, he has superpowers. Kurt Angle had superpowers. I mean, Undertaker went for tombstone, ankle lock. Last ride, ankle lock. Choke slam, ankle lock. Walk off the rope, ankle lock. And then, so I watched that match, and like my head gets it's just ridiculous. Like that, the match was so back and forth. Ankle lock, Hell's Gate. Ankle lock, choke slam. Like, all the freaking time was back and forth. I like the fact that that match brought out Undertaker's wrestling side. Like I said, the Jeff Hardy match. What I liked about the Jeff Hardy match was that you see Undertaker sort of panic. You see Undertaker sort of surprised and taken aback. But in this match, you see a more focused Undertaker. You see Undertaker doesn't give up. You see Undertaker in a weird way during that match. Undertaker was the underdog because Kurt Angle completely dominated. In my opinion, I felt that Kurt Angle excelled in that match. He really did. He dominated Undertaker, and I love the fact that I like the fact that in this match, this was the only match where Undertaker lost, and I was okay. Like I wasn't happy, but I wasn't sad. You know what I'm saying? I was like, okay, Kurt Angle won, and he deserved to win that match because that match was just an absolute classic. And I wish it was a WrestleMania match. I really wish. And you know, the way Kurt Angle delivers the angle slam to the Undertaker, it's just perfection. And literally, that match, Kurt Angle just was a machine, and it was just he literally has superpowers. I mean, Undertaker goes to the tombstone, and he just crawls over and grabs the ankle to a rock. It was just mind blowing, and that's number 4 for me.
Mustafa, what about you? Number 4?
So my number 4 pick is what you just mentioned as your number 5 pick, Kunal, which is Undertaker versus Mankind at King of the Ring 1998 inside Hell in a Cell. Of course, as you just said, that match, like as Dave Meltzer talks about it, he says that was not a wrestling match. That was the audio is, I think, wrong.
It's fine. Around that maybe.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, as Dave Meltzer says, that was not a wrestling match. That was a straight up one-sided beatdown. You know what I'm saying? That was like a straight beatdown sort of thing that the Undertaker gave to Mankind. I mean, the bumps he took, plus JR's commentary on each and every bump was just iconic. Whether it was "Good God Almighty," as God is my witness, is broken in half, and then the craziest bump, which was through the cell into the ring. And a lot of people thought that he was actually dead at that point. People thought that Mankind was gone, Mankind was dead. Even the Undertaker thought, he was like, is he alive or not? He didn't know. And then Jerry Lawler, just to add to it, just to like keep all the fans at home even more shocked. Jerry Lawler said, "Yep, he's dead." Like just adding to the whole thing. And then a final bump where he chokeslams Mankind on top of the thumbtacks. When you thought you've seen everything, that you see this crazy bump, and then you're like, just end the damn match. We do not want to see more. Things go down, and finally he hits him with the tombstone and ends the match. It's gonna go as one hell of a bloody classic, like literally bloody classic. There was so much blood, there was so much madness, there was so much craziness. This was not wrestling, in my opinion. This was just a one-sided, crazy beatdown of Mankind by the Undertaker.
Yeah, that's a good pick, number 4. I mentioned my number 5. Mikaeel, what's your number 4 pick? Once again, guys, audio issue. All right now. Mikaeel, can you speak something now? You sounded like the Undertaker actually now. Honestly.
He sounded like the Terminator. Undertaker had sex.
And Batman.
It's not good. You have a headphone or something?
Yeah, headphones, Mikaeel.
Just do one thing. Just get out and come back in. Oh my god! It's like Undertaker combined, and you get Mikaeel.
Add Batman to the list too. Add Batman to the list.
Wow.
Oh my god. That's been the funniest thing I've seen in a while.
Guys, remember the feud with the Undertaker and Randy Orton in 2005?
It's just killed me.
I know. You guys remember when Undertaker possessed Josh Matthews during the thing in 2005? This is how Mikaeel sounded right now.
It's true. We're still live. We're not going anywhere anyway. But we can just talk about just the fact that happened. It's not good. It's not good. The mic is not there to connect a mic or something, dude.
Can you even leave the stream and join in again?
Yeah, I think that's let mic is entered.
Just put the mic on and then try.
Yeah, just try.
Hello.
I think you need to exit. You need to exit and come
Yeah,
back.
leave the stream and join in again.
I'll send you a link. Yeah. Man, that guy, bro, he was so random, bro. Seriously.
Undertaker possessed him straight up in the middle of the stream.
No, it was his computer, bro, not him. It was the computer.
This is comedic.
Perfect.
That was insane, bro. didn't expect that to happen. Honestly.
Are we gonna leave that in the middle of the stream, in the middle of the live stream?
What? No, it's going to be live. It's live, so I'm not going to edit that. I can edit it, but I don't want to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
better
for
leave that.
comedic gold. I don't care.
But that was weird, bro. It started doing something, the audio, and then I'd muted Farha and I muted Mustafa. Okay, Mikaeel, let's see. Is it okay now?
You tell me.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
correct. Thank God.
All right.
Oh,
Fine.
What
God.
the
All
heck?
right. Great. All right. So anyway,
Yeah, number 4 pick.
so what I was saying was that before I mention my number 4, I'm just going to put this out there that I will not be mentioning the Undertaker's matches with Triple H or with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania because it would be too easy. Farhan, do not hate me for this next pick because I know you hate this guy. So it's going to be Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar, not at WrestleMania, at No Mercy 2002.
Oh yeah.
At Hell in a Cell match.
Yep.
So this, if you want a match which is just sheer brutality, this is probably the most brutal Hell in a Cell match I have ever seen. Undertaker selling his broken hand in like kayfabe and using the cast on Lesnar is just like brutal to watch. And Undertaker did like some moves that we don't typically see. He jumped from the top rope and like landed his knee right on Lesnar's forehead. There are some really brutal spots, such as when Paul Heyman ties the Undertaker's broken hand and Lesnar is just smashing it over and over again with a steel chair. Everyone freaking bleeds in this match. Everyone, not just Undertaker and Lesnar, but Paul Heyman bleeds. And this match was like Undertaker. I've never seen bleed that much. Like those two shots, those two steel steps to the head that Lesnar does to the Undertaker. You can't help but just cringe in how like painful that could have been. And Undertaker's like bleeding. And I think that this match is so significant because of what could have been, because Lesnar was coming off the back beating Hollywood Hogan and The Rock. And for Undertaker to put Lesnar over, it showed how much faith the company had in Lesnar. And he was that at the time. I think this was one of the first of many classics Lesnar had in his first run with the WWE. Unfortunately, Suplex City and all of that shit happened. Let's not forget that. But in his initial run, Lesnar was definitely, a fantastic wrestler. And this match showed that. And of course, I love the ending gets me every time. Undertaker went for a tombstone, and the strength of Brock Lesnar to carry Undertaker on his shoulder, and then and he's a 300-pound man, and he throws him up, and he still catches him into a fireman's carry and is able to deliver F5. That is insane, and that just shows Lesnar's strength. Everything was amazing about this match, so it's going to be 4 for me.
So let's go with number 3 pick. Farhan, what's your number 3 pick?
Number 3 pick would be Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, Hell in a Cell, then Bad Blood. I'd put that as number 3. Again, iconic match, one of the defining matches of the Attitude Era. The bumps that Shawn took were insane. It just had it told a great story in the sense that it was a story that we wanted to see. Shawn Michaels being the little cowardly shithead heel, and Undertaker being the dominant hero, and Shawn Michaels running away from Undertaker throughout the whole match, trying to create distance, and Undertaker just polarizing and beating the living crap out of him. And of course, Shawn bleeding profusely, him being thrown on the side of the cell on the table below. Of course, the iconic chair shot on Shawn Michaels. Michaels' cranium just got cracked. An amazing call by JR. And of course, the debut of Kane, which set a rivalry that goes on for decades. So it was just a great match, and it was storytelling at its finest. It was a classic David versus Goliath match. I love it.
Yeah, that's a good pick. Mr. Mustafa, what's your number 3 pick?
Okay, so my number 3 pick is the infamous end of an era match at WrestleMania 28, Undertaker versus Triple H. Now, this match was like outside of the match. There was so much happening about it. the build up to it was something else. Undertaker challenging Triple H, and then adding the stipulation of Hell in a Cell. You know, going into WrestleMania, you never thought Undertaker's streak was going to end, but since 25, you thought, okay, we might just see it end now. And this match had those moments. I mean, where have you seen in a match that a referee is holding his head in his hands, telling the guys to just end it right now? You guys are doing too much. Sean was showing this down the middle. You saw Triple H hitting Undertaker with chair shot after chair shot that was being heard through the whole stadium there in Miami, Florida. And like not even that, but he's telling Sean to end it or I will. And what does he mean by that? He means tell Sean to ask Undertaker if he quits. If he doesn't quit, he's gonna end it. And how does he intend to end it? By knocking him down, by passing the Undertaker out. So Sean calls the match off and calls Triple H the winner. And this is how Triple H wanted to win. So even during the beginning of the match, you knew like this is gonna be a classic. And then you had that crazy moment where like when the Undertaker gets frustrated, he attacks Sean. The other referee comes in. Undertaker chokeslams the referee. At that point, JR says the iconic line. He says, "The scene inside the cell is like that. It's like that of a car accident. You know, you have bodies laying around, things laying around. You have steel steps flying, the chairs lying. It was a carnage already. And the best part of the match still yet to come when when they all stand up. Undertaker goes with the tombstone, but Triple H pushes him into Sean. Sean gives him the sweet chin music. Triple H hits the pedigree. At that point,
that was the best moment.
Exactly. At that point, the whole stadium stands up. Now, a year before, at the moment in WrestleMania 27, when Triple H hits his tombstone to the Undertaker, when that happened, the whole crowd, if you look in the back, the whole crowd stands up and starts filming because they think we're going to see the streak end, and still not. 3 times in a row, you get tricked to see the streak ending, but it doesn't. And again, the crowd falls for it. Again, the crowd thinks we're going to see the streak end. This is how crazy the match was. I've seen videos of that moment itself when people were filming, and as soon as Undertaker kicked out of the right, people filmed from the crowds. The security guards were losing their mind. Imagine security guards losing their mind over what's happening in the ring. You know what I'm saying? That's how crazy this moment was. Sean's reaction said it all. Shawn Michaels jumping from one top rope to another top rope, holding his head in his hand. Everyone was losing their mind. What was happening? They don't know. Long story short, after the match, another iconic moment. Undertaker's theme playing 20-0 in the background, all 3 of them embracing on top of the ramp. To me, this was the perfect ending to an era. If there was like a movie about, let's say, like if a movie series was ever to be made about the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression Era, this would have been the Avengers Endgame of that. I don't know. I just feel something like this. Like this is how crazy and iconic this moment was. Honestly, like as a 15-year-old kid watching that, I was like, "Yo, this is iconic. This is something I've never seen before." And what a way to end it all with one of the best storytellings. And the fact that at 27, it was Triple H and The Undertaker. At 28, it was Shawn Michaels was just as much of a part of this as much as Triple H and The Undertaker were. 3 icons over there, honestly, are just one of the most craziest matches in the history of WWE.
That's a very detailed answer you're giving, Mustafa. Mikaeel, what's your number 3 pick?
My number 3 pick, I hope my voice doesn't sound like The Undertaker right now, but
No, it's fine.
It's number 3 is going to be Undertaker versus Mankind at King of the Ring 1998. I'm not going to go too much into the match because I think you yourself and Fazil have already done that. But I'm going to talk about more the impact of what this wrestling match has had on wrestling itself and its significance to the Monday Night War.
Yeah.
Often people overlook, I feel, Undertaker and Mankind when it comes to their role in defeating WCW in the Monday Night War. People point to guys like Austin, guys like The Rock, but this match set the bar, in my opinion. This was what really solidified WWF's dominance because no one expected this. I mean, here was a guy who risked his own body just to, for his company, for the fans, and of course, Undertaker wrestling with a broken foot. That shows the commitment of these 2 gentlemen. And it set the bar for Hell in a Cell matches. I mean, I don't think, that Mick Foley getting thrown off the cage can ever be topped. But it definitely set a standard of what is to be expected in a Hell in a Cell match. I mean, we look at some great Hell in a Cell matches, such as, versus HBK with The Undertaker. Then there's the famous match at WrestleMania 28. So it set the bar. And, this match, even years later, no matter what your age is, no matter which generation you come from, no matter when you started watching wrestling, everyone knows this match. It's been replicated in video games. It's been replicated in media, in any of WWE's like highlight packages about Hell in a Cell. So that just goes to show how like significant it is to the WWE. Even to this day, it is probably one of the most memorable moments in wrestling like ever. And if I have to speak a bit about the match, in terms of like a match, a wrestling match, it wasn't really that. It was more like, bumps, but it's just so iconic. You can't help but to put it on your top 5 list of the Undertaker's matches. Those 3 bumps, like not just the set, like throwing him off the choke slam and then the thumbtacks, but of course, like one of the most like for me, one of the most like crazy images where I'm like, this Mick Foley is one like crazy son of a bitch. Is that he's got his tooth stuck in his nose and he's bleeding from his mouth, and the camera zooms in on him, and all he's doing is like he's laughing and smiling, and I'm just like, oh man, this guy is next level hardcore. Like you thought Terry Funk or anyone else or Sabu or RVD people should take a look at Mick Foley. So he's definitely good, and he is definitely one of the best wrestlers as well. But yeah, number 3 for me, definitely.
That's a good point, Mikaeel. So my number 3 pick would be Undertaker versus CM Punk at WrestleMania 29, because of what it was. I would rank it above, for me, like for above Hell in a Cell or both the matches, because this was not just about wrestling. It was more about a story that was being told in a very efficient way. If you see CM Punk as a wrestler, he should have been the Undertaker for the streak. You said that perfectly correctly. You said that.
Someone agrees with me.
No, because I'm not going to say that Brock Lesnar didn't deserve to beat Undertaker, because the impact he's had after that streak match.
Bro, like, you know why I say that?
Yeah.
But you know why? I say that because Brock Lesnar is a part-timer. He didn't need to break the streak. I think that it could have done someone some good. Like even if not CM Punk, I think that earlier it could have been Randy Orton in that WrestleMania match. So it even depends, because breaking Undertaker's streak is such a it's a huge burden to bear, and it means that you are the future. Even like today, suppose if Undertaker was unbeaten still, I think someone who deserves to have it is either the tribal chief Roman Reigns or definitely that guy Drew McIntyre or the Fiend.
Or maybe Seth Rollins. I would go for Seth Rollins.
I'll go with the Fiend. Yeah.
The Fiend. I think the Fiend.
Yeah, because to carry on that gimmick in terms of the mystery and all that stuff. But with CM Punk, when obviously he had his trouble with WWE, and he's not been, not appreciated ever since he's been left. But what he did was he really made sure that people like the wrestling more. There was more wrestling into that. The promos that get cut were unbelievable, bro. The promos, how you talk and how you do the simple things more easily. In the last promo that they had before the match, Paul Heyman came out as Paul Bearer, and everyone was shocked. No one expected that to happen. And then CM Punk is hiding in one of the gimmicks, like to carry the torch, and he attacks him. And it should have been CM Punk, because of the way that he carried out the match, the way that he did really made sure that everyone maybe respects him, because ever since he was there in the industry, no one respected him that much, because you're getting an Undertaker match. When you get an Undertaker match, that is like the biggest compliment you can ever have.
Exactly.
That's the biggest compliment for a wrestler. And it should have been him, but it wasn't. But I would and that elbow of the what do you say, we have Mikaeel back. He had some technical difficulties. So I was just saying regarding CM Punk. No, this is not Undertaker and Arnold Schwarzenegger. This is Undertaker and Farhan stupid acting. So I was just saying with the CM Punk match, that's my number 3 pick, Farhan, by the way. CM Punk had a elbow drop off the top rope, and that was like, wow. And actually, CM Punk injured his leg because of that.
Yeah.
And when Undertaker gives the tombstone to CM Punk and he kicks out, people couldn't believe it, because the tombstone was so quick, and he went with the cover so quick. Because when he puts the tombstone, he takes that 2 arm, then he puts his tongue out. But in this, tombstone 1, 2, and just started the count, like so sudden, and he kicked out, because of that what do you say, the movement of GTS, and then the tombstone, and then the cover, and then the kick out. People like in 1 minute, you're like, oh my god, what just happened? You think Undertaker will lose, then you think CM Punk will lose, and then he kicks out. So those are the moments. Like for me, that was the match of the night. Not Rock versus Cena or Triple H versus Brock
Oh,
Lesnar. That was the
uh,
match of the night. That is one of the WrestleMania moments. And Rock Cena, you know what? I don't think it deserved to be happening again. I would
yeah.
rather prefer CM Punk, Cena, and The Rock in the 29 match. That would be awesome. The triple threat.
Honestly, I feel like
Even
honestly feel
elimination
like
match.
CM Punk with Cena would have should have happened. CM
Yeah,
Punk
it
with
should
Cena
have
was
happened because
another
that guy, he
another one
owned
of the
that
biggest
year. He
rivalries.
really
Yeah,
owned it.
exactly.
He
Exactly.
owned
Like
it.
CM Punk, just yeah, exactly. CM Punk's impact was that he actually got me interested in wrestling again. I was a
Yeah.
huge fan of him, but I just couldn't
Yeah.
stand the product anymore after it became PG. But in 2011, when he dropped that infamous pipe bomb,
Oh
from
yeah.
from from that year till now, I've at least I've had a certain interest in wrestling because of CM Punk. And the fact was, I really feel that he was never, ever, ever, ever given that kind of faith that other main eventers like Cena or Austin were given, where CM Punk matches those guys, but he just wasn't given those opportunities. And this was an example of that. That he wasn't even given the main event. I think a triple threat match where CM Punk beats The Rock and Cena at WrestleMania would have been perfect, or even at least be involved in the
Yeah.
triple threat match,
Yeah.
even if he doesn't win. But again, the fact is, WWE being WWE, sometimes I guess he didn't fit the mold
Exactly.
of a bodybuilder because he was too much of an indie darling.
But if you see that at that particular time, and if you see the wrestlers now, everyone who is now fits the bill of CM Punk. Everyone is athletic, everyone is thin, they're all ripped, and they are actually wrestlers. And we all try to see, when CM Punk was rising, there was no wrestler like CM Punk then. But now, if you see the kind of impact he's had, he has got guys like Seth Rollins. For me, is one of them. For me, Kevin Owens is one of them. Sami Zayn is one of them. Even
Finn
AJ
Balor.
Styles. Hmm?
Finn Balor.
Finn
Yeah.
Balor is one of them. AJ Styles is one of them. Even though AJ Styles has success all over the world, no one would have thought at that time that if he had come in that time instead of coming at a little bit late, that he would have the success. But once you had a guy like CM Punk where the audiences were behind him, the audiences loved him as a heel or as a babyface. They understood what he was trying to do. They
Exactly.
wanted to see what promo he has, what he's going to say to The Rock and Cena, because he used to kill it in the promos. And even in this match, he killed it with Undertaker in the match, in the promo, in everything that they did. And it was a lot of fun to see that. So that's my number 3 pick. Farhan, what's your number 2 pick? Let's go.
For Undertaker, my number 2 pick would be Undertaker versus Bret Hart in SummerSlam. I'd put that again. Two of my all-time favorites.
You
Uh,
son of a bitch, you took my number 2. Yeah, so that was my number 2 as well.
you know, I mean, think about it. Three of my all-time favorite superstars in the ring
In a match.
together: Undertaker, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels. I
Yeah.
mean, I love the fact that I love the finish of the match. I love how that match led on to the iconic Hell in a Cell match with Shawn Michaels,
Correct.
and I
True,
love,
true.
yeah. And like I said, that there's nothing more I can really say for this match, honestly.
Farhan, let me say
Three,
one more thing. I'll just add one more thing. That Hell in a Cell match led to the most infamous match at any wrestling industry, which is the Survivor Series, where Bret Hart got screwed.
Yeah.
how the hell in a cell lead to that?
Because
Oh,
Hell in
because
a Cell
Shawn
was
won.
Because yes, Sean won, and that was for the number one
That was enough
contendership
for Bret Hart. Yeah.
championship. And next was
Yeah,
Survivor Series, so that didn't happen,
Yeah.
and you know what
yeah.
happened then.
So I would go with that with my number 2 pick.
So that's my number 2 pick. Anyways, I'm not going to speak about that because
Okay.
Farhan has already said it, like why it is so iconic, and it's really nice to see all three wrestlers involved in some kind of a way to tell a very good story. So that's my number 2 pick again. Undertaker versus Bret Hart, same as Farhan. Mika, what about you?
So number two for me is going to be the Undertaker versus Kurt Angle at No Way Out 2006. I know Farhan had talked about that match earlier, but to me, this match is criminally underrated. I don't see many people actually talking about this match, even though, like,
Yeah,
it's. And what I love about this match is it's not, this is the point where Kurt Angle was no longer like that goofy Olympic hero. He was known as the wrestling machine. He was
yeah,
he was ruthless, he was fearless, and it even like showed in his wrestling because he didn't like run away from the Undertaker, even though he's a smaller guy. And I think Farhan's right about Undertaker working with smaller guys, that he they bring out the best in the Undertaker and he brings out the best in them. And Kurt Angle's another example of that. That Kurt like approached the Undertaker, and I like the fact in this match, it felt like a genuine wrestling match. There was a lot of strategy on both of these gentlemen's part, with Kurt Angle constantly targeting the leg. He wanted because he knew he couldn't get the Undertaker down any other way, and that's a similarity even to Brett's match with the Undertaker that Farhan just mentioned. Both these guys targeted the legs of the Undertaker because he's such a big man. And with Undertaker, he just uses brute strength to, and of course, Undertaker's, knowledge in MMA and also his submissions, they came into play in this match. And I think one of my favorite like parts, because I thought this is when I thought it was over, not the roll up at the end, but when Kurt Angle slammed the Undertaker onto the announcers table. That's probably the closest 10 count I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, this match had everything, and it had technical wrestling. It had brute strength from the Undertaker, and I like the fact that this match. What adds to it, how I mentioned that it felt like a genuine wrestling match. Was it didn't have like a fancy finish. There was no tombstone. There was no ankle lock tap out. There was no angle slam pin. It was just a simple that Kurt Angle outsmarted the Undertaker. Kurt Angle recognized he was in trouble from the triangle choke or the Hell's Gate that Undertaker had put on him. And instead, he flips over and gets the Undertaker's shoulders down and just pins him. And I like the fact that Undertaker even realized that. Like, he just grabs Kurt Angle and he's like, I had your number. So all of it felt like one of the, like, instead of a WWE match being shown, it felt like a wrestling match was being shown. You know what I mean? Like, though that difference, it wasn't not flashy, not all glamorous and not sports entertainment, but actually people respecting the art of wrestling. So that's gonna be number 2.
That's a good point. Mustafa, what's your number 2 pick?
So before I get to my number 2 pick, I'll just like to add to what Mikaeel said and what you said earlier about the No Way Out match, because it's not in my top 5. However, it should be known that Kurt Angle was uniquely known for bringing his Olympic wrestling moves into WWE, and that's what made him so good in the ring and so unique in the ring. That's what was shown in this match. Like every single time he transformed Undertaker's moves into the ankle lock, that was like an Olympic wrestling thing. How you transfer takedowns and stuff into submissions. However, my number 2 pick is surprisingly what a lot of people's number 1 pick, at least for Hans, number one pick I know, which is going to be okay, I'm sorry, like I can't predict the future, but like it's Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25. And like this is just an absolute classic. Everything about it is an absolute classic. I've spoken about this before. I don't know if I should speak about this again. Like the build-up was unlike anything we had ever seen. The build-up was so crazy. We had Taker and Shawn wrestle at Bad Blood, and then again they were the last 2 contenders at the Royal Rumble in 2007. So just seeing this match being made was absolutely crazy. It was like almost like the build-up towards like in a football tournament when you have 2 guys facing each other in the semifinal or final who have never played each other before. Like that was the kind of build-up this match had, and the match didn't fail to deliver one bit. Nothing about this match was like even like a botch match was so good. The fact that people thought that the Undertaker streak would end by a count out already showed how crazy this match was. Like he made it into the ring at 9.5. People already were starting to lose their minds. He traded blows and all that, and then the most iconic part when Undertaker hits Shawn with the tombstone. Shawn kicks out, and JR says Undertaker has had an out-of-body experience. That face of Undertaker is like memed forever now.
No, but I want to just say that no one could believe that happened. Like everyone in the crowd was like, "What was that?"
Exactly. I think that was a moment that that was the moment that changed the course of the Undertaker's WrestleMania match in the future. That was the moment people thought the streak is actually breakable now, even though the streak did not end that night. People thought, okay, now the streak is not something invincible. The streak can be broken any time. And then a few moments later, Shawn Michaels hits him with the switching music. People think, okay, now we saw it end. Still didn't end. After that, like JR said it best. He's like, these two have hit each other with everything there is. How much more, or something like that. Like, I remember he said something like that. And ending with iconic Shawn Michaels doing the moonsault, and then Undertaker catching him for the tombstone, finally hitting him with that tombstone, ending the match. I feel as if even though the Undertaker won this match, number one, Shawn Michaels showed the world why he's called Mr. WrestleMania, and then this moment, this match set up for Undertaker's next couple of matches. The moments we saw in the next matches where the streak almost came to an end was because of this moment, was because of this kick out, and then Shawn Michaels hitting him with the switching music. This started the trends in the next couple of Undertaker's WrestleMania matches where we saw his streak almost come to an end. And because of that, this is one of the most iconic matches of all time.
Very good points. I noticed Farhan was pissed off with the fact that Mustafa said this as a number one pick. Farhan, is that a number one pick?
My
Yeah,
number two.
yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say anything even. That's number one, Kalas. End of story. I rest my
Sorry about
case.
that, man. I'm sorry about that.
I'm done. I'm not saying anything. I've spoken about this match so many times on the Canal call.
Yeah.
It's going to be my fifth time. I can't. Sorry, guys. You know it's number one for me.
So that's number one for Farhan. So, Mikael, what's your number one pick?
So for me, as I mentioned, it would have been WrestleMania 25's match or 26 even because I mentioned that I like 26 more, but it's neither of those matches. It's going to be it is Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, but it's Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels at Bad Blood in Your House 1997. That's number one for me. All of you have spoken about this match, so I'm just going to add a little bit more about what I loved. So this was the first Hell in a Cell match, and one of the things that makes this match so unique, why this Hell in a Cell match stands out for me more than actually Mankind's, is because it was the first. And when you see Shawn Michaels entering the cell, Shawn Michaels played his part perfectly because he had no idea what he was getting himself into. No one knew what the Hell in a Cell match was like. And Shawn, like looking around, constantly, like, shivering and just looking scared constantly, sold the demonic structure perfectly. And of course, Undertaker's entrance, I don't know what it is about this, but I get chills every time when Undertaker comes on the stairs and he does that thing. And there's that big, like, loud thunder. And Shawn Michaels just, like, is, twitching and all. It's just, like, amazing to watch, really. It just, like, that's what I talked about earlier about the Undertaker's presence. But coming to the match, man, one of the most, like, crazy spots I ever saw. Like, because I guess maybe this move is banned now, that's why you get more scared. But that pile driver that HBK gave Undertaker on the steps,
Yeah.
there you go. And also, you mentioned when they went on top, like Undertaker was holding Shawn Michaels on his shoulder, and because he just like rammed him constantly, his head into the cell inside the cage. They went outside the cage, he rams him there. Shawn Michaels trying to run from him, he goes on top of the cell, and Shawn even allows the Undertaker to gorilla press slam him on top of the cage. If that thing broke, Shawn's career would have been done. And Shawn does not care. And that punch, and Shawn Michaels goes flying near the edge of the cell. I mean, he has no fear for his life. He's just enjoying himself, wrestling the Undertaker in this match. And Undertaker stomping on his hand and making him fall through the announcer's table. I think that one is overlooked. I mean, because we have Undertakers throwing Mankind off the Hell in a Cell, but this one was even just as like devastating in my opinion because Shawn just lets himself go and he falls. He was completely like destroyed in this match. He got a few kicks, and even this has to be one of the most sickening. Not just the pile driver, the chair shot.
Oh, it's
Right to the end.
Yeah.
When Undertaker hits Shawn on the head,
Yeah,
one of the loudest chair shots you'll ever hear. Undertaker really meant that. I think, but yeah, Shawn played his role perfectly. He was himself. Like Shawn, he can wrestle in any match. He can wrestle in any situation. He'll wrestle in his sleep even. Undertaker, like he had come up with the Hell in a Cell match. It was his gimmick, and he played that part perfectly. And it's an instant classic. And let's talk about the end. Everyone knows what happens. This has to be one of the if we were going to have a top 5 debuts list, Kane's would have been in it for sure.
Yeah, for me, number one.
Yeah, for me, it's number one as well.
It was shocking,
It was. I mean, and even this is what I was going to say. Vince McMahon is so underrated as a commentator. I just love that. That's gotta be Kane. I love that line. And he, Kane's walking out with Paul Bearer, red lights, like how the Fiend, has now. Well, he did, but they don't do that anymore. And he like rips the cage off with his bare hands. You didn't see stuff like that back then. And Undertaker, like you see for the first time in his career, Undertaker not being this like Lord of Darkness or this like fearless dead man. He's like in genuine shock and fear of, it's Kane. And, the Tombstone and HBK gets the win. I would have loved to see Undertaker win because like Farhan actually, when I was a kid, I used to get so annoyed and upset when Undertaker would lose, especially that TLC match against Edge, but that's a different story. But yeah, so this has to be number one for me. No questions.
That's a good number one pick. Okay, I'm going to just add one thing before I go to Mustafa, that Farhan was looking like possessed by the Undertaker when Mikaeel was saying his number one pick. I don't know why he's staring at the screen. He's scaring some. Yeah, you're just like this. something. That's so
He
that
stared at me that way when I mentioned that Undertaker versus Lesnar was number 4 for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but you know what? At that particular time in 2002, Lesnar was awesome, bro. Lesnar
Yeah,
was
he was.
really
Yeah, like I think that Lesnar would have been like, he would have been definitely been like an all-time great had he stayed with
Exactly, yeah.
WWE and been
for
like the
sure.
way he was 2002 to 2004.
That's true.
Anyway,
So, Mustafa, what's your number one pick?
so surprisingly, my number one pick is just like what Mikaeel said, Shawn versus Shawn Michaels, Undertaker at Hell in a Cell, 1997 Bad Blood. I'm not gonna talk about this because I feel like Mikaeel has said everything. However, I'm gonna do something different, and I'm gonna give some honorable mentions that I feel like should have made top 5 or at least top 10 everyone's list. Undertaker
Let
versus
go.
Edge. Undertaker versus Edge in 2008, the WrestleMania 24 match, the Hell in a Cell
Oh,
match
for
was
sure.
crazy inside a ladder, like a ladder inside Hell in a Cell, and then later on they had another match where if TLC match, if Undertaker lost, then he would be fired. Undertaker's matches every time Undertaker and Kane were wrestled, that's an honorable mention. Undertaker versus Brock, Undertaker versus Bret Hart at 1997 SummerSlam, one of my favorites of all time, and of course the match against Kurt Angle at No Way Out. Honestly, he never had a bad match in my opinion. Even after he came back and he teamed up with Team Hell No against the Shield, he was just killing it in the ring. Like this
But
guy.
Hey
can
guys,
I
I have
mention
a,
one
I have
more?
a genuine question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have like a genuine question, all of you. Why didn't we include the actual best Undertaker match in Hell in a Cell? I mean, in his career. We're all forgetting one important match.
It
What,
wasn't
Roman
the
Reigns?
best match.
Undertaker versus Giant Gonzalez.
It's a testament to the Undertaker to work with such cartoons, man, and still be respected that much.
I know, yeah.
Even like in the 90s, yeah. So in the
Yeah, I think
90s,
we need to wrap
so
up.
you wanna go?
I have to go. My dad's waiting for me. 5 o'clock.
All right. So thanks, man. Thanks for the top 5
All
picks.
right.
So thank you
Sorry,
so much,
guys.
bro.
Take care, guys.
It's fine. It's fine. We'll just continue like
See you,
whatever.
bro.
Thank you
I
again, man.
leave. You have to continue. It's fine. Don't worry.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Take
Thank you,
care.
Farhan.
All right.
That's
See you,
Farhan.
bro.
All right. Thanks for having me.
See you. So that's Farhan, everyone. He had to go. Obviously, it's a Friday and people need to go out and spend time with their family. So I really, and that's why I really appreciate people coming to the podcast. So for my number one pick is Kurt Angle versus Undertaker 2006 No Way Out, obviously.
Damn.
But we know that the thing with for me is that all of us have similar choices compared when it comes to the top 5 matches of Undertaker. Because we know that how important it was for Undertaker in terms of the wrestler he's wrestling with, the kind of matches he's having. He has had different. I'm not going to get into Undertaker Kurt Angle match because everyone has mentioned as to why it's iconic. But people forgot that Kurt Angle's neck was broken, and he still wrestled that
Yeah.
match.
Yeah.
People forget that.
I think that
neck-
like
yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Kunal, but I think that it's so, like this kind of list that we had to name Undertaker's top 5.
Yeah.
It was probably like, a Herculean task because we're talking
know,
about 30 years. In fact, Undertaker's upcoming celebration of 30 years of destruction. I mean, he's the demon of Death Valley. He's the phenom. And, no amount of matches we list will justify just how good the Undertaker is. I mean, like I said, I wanted to mention his 4 consecutive WrestleMania matches, but it just would have been too easy. So I guess I wanted to come up with a list with different matches, and there were so many to pick from. Like I actually spent like last night preparing for this podcast trying to figure out. Like I'd go back and watch some of Undertaker's matches just to figure out what to put on this list. But yeah, I mean, I don't blame you for putting number 1 Kurt Angle, his match with Kurt Angle.
Because when you see Kurt Angle, whenever you see his career, like for me, he's one of the best wrestlers of all time. He's so underrated and he's so amazing. Because the kind of rise he had to becoming a wrestler, and then obviously the kind of gimmicks he portrayed was awesome. But when you're seeing matches, you can't underestimate Undertaker versus Batista at WrestleMania versus Randy
That was a
Orton.
good match. That was a good match.
Yeah, the Batista one was a great match. Like I didn't expect that to be that good, honestly, and it was so good.
Especially the match with
I think
Randy Orton.
Batista's match was surprisingly good because these are 2 really big men, so you'd expect them, but they both had like extraordinary speed to pull off. And that was that dive. That dive Undertaker does, like when he jumps and like he runs. Yeah, that probably his best dive was against Batista. That has to be the best one I've ever seen.
Suicide dive he does, yeah.
Yeah, Mustafa, you were saying something?
I was saying like even the match against Randy Orton was one hell of a classic. Like especially that moment when he picks him up for the choke
Uh,
slam and Randy Orton to an RKO. Like you never thought it would happen. You never thought like something like that would happen. And people thought that the streak was going to end there, even though the streak was just like new. Like the concept of the streak was just new. People still thought like it was going to end there because he was a legend killer and he had just transformed the choke slam into an RKO, which no one expected that to happen. So that was also one of my favorites.
Now we're going to end the stream because everyone has mentioned the top 5 matches. I'd just like to add that one thing that and I know that all three of us, Farhan was not, it's not here, but he would agree with this, that Undertaker always respected new guys. Whenever you see him with a new guy like Randy, Batista, John, Brock Lesnar, even Rey Mysterio when he came to the WWE for the first time, Jeff Hardy for the first time, Edge, the kind of respect that he had for wrestlers was unbelievable. Like people who really took WWE seriously, you saw that Undertaker respected them more. That's the kind of guy he is, and I don't think anyone can be like him. I don't. There's no one. There's not going to be a guy like Undertaker ever.
He,
Even
he
10
even
years
took a
also.
bump. He even took a bump from Cody Rhodes at the Royal Rumble when he was just 22.
Yeah.
When Cody Rhodes was a 22-year-old kid, he told Cody, "Hit me and then drop kick me," and he took a bump like that. Like that's how much respect he had for new and upcoming people.
Yeah, Undertaker was. That's what I think makes the Undertaker so special because he could do anything and he would. He was like, he was the locker room leader for Vince McMahon. He was, he was the most like loyal employee Vince ever had. And like, Vince tears up, in fact, trying to talk about his relationship with the Undertaker because of everything Undertaker has done for the WWE and for wrestling in general. For me, there will never, ever, ever be a bigger icon than the Undertaker. Like, even though I wanted, I felt like it was time for Undertaker to retire, like as a fan, because age is catching up to him and all that, and you don't want him to burn his legacy, and you don't want him to basically destroy his legacy. But when he announced his retirement and all that, I just couldn't help but to be like, my childhood is over. Like I'm never going to see like my hero wrestle again. So that it hits you.
Yeah.
Even a person who's a non-wrestling fan knows Undertaker. Like that.
Everyone knows Undertaker. My parents know Undertaker, and they watch WWE.
Like if you ask girls, for example, like girls don't see wrestling that much anyway. But if you say Undertaker, like, oh yeah, the guy in the wrestling, they know who Undertaker is.
Exactly. Yeah, everyone knows.
Yeah. Everyone, even people who have never watched wrestling in their life, if you mention the name Undertaker, they know who Undertaker is.
My parents never watched WWE, but they know who Undertaker is.
Exactly.
My parents know who the Undertaker is.
Yeah, I mean, so, they must have seen him in a picture or like in a movie or something that they must have seen some kind of promo of him. But that's the kind of impact he had, and it's sad to see him go away. But at the same time, I'm happy also because everyone deserves a family, and everyone deserves to be with their family. And I don't want him to die or something. Like I don't want him to do all this crazy stuff. Like it's okay to go, it's fine. He's done all he can. He has done everything he can.
Exactly. Dude, his condition after his match with Triple H at WrestleMania 27 was so worrying that he had to be carried in the back. People were like, "This is the end," but no one knew he had so many years left in him. So
that was like 10 years ago, bro. That was that. I know. And that was like his peak of wrestling. I think he was about to enter his 50s, and he was so hurt by Triple H because that was a brutal match. If you just see that match, it's completely crazy. So yeah, man, that's the Undertaker for all of us. That's the Mark Calloway. He's
before we go. Sorry.
Yeah, we're going. Okay. So thank you so much, guys.
We all have. I have one more thing to say, which is, and I think we can all say it. Thank you, Taker.
Yeah, thank you, Taker. Thank you so much, man. I hope he sees this podcast and he calls me for an interview. I hope that happens once. Once.
You make sure to call me when that happens because I would love to. Even if I'd be an honor.
Yeah, if that happens, because anything can happen. So let's see what about that. So thank you guys again for watching the Kunal Call. If you're seeing this, please like, share, subscribe to the channel. It's mentioned below, and click on the bell icon to never miss an update. So thank you guys. Thank you, Mikaeel. Thank you, Mustafa. Thank you, Farhan, who's not here.
Thank you, Kunal.
Thank you, man. Take care and God bless, guys. Stay safe.